I thought I was watching a movie until I saw myself on screen. I used to think my life began at 30. No childhood memories, no family, no relatives, just a medical record, a temporary ID, and a name someone gave me. Like naming a stray dog found on the street, Ryan. I never questioned it. Maybe because I chose not to. I chose to forget, to live quietly, no past, no trouble, no one too close. I worked as a sound tech at a small mountain town theater, Silver Pines. My days were routine. Check the soundboard, adjust the projector, sweep the aisles. Then I'd stay late, watching films alone. I didn't like crowds. I liked darkness. And I liked movies, because in movies, everything means something. In real life, nothing does. That night started like any other. A group of film students came to test screen a documentary. Their project? A horror-style doc filmed inside an abandoned psychiatric hospital. Some weird stuff showed up in post, one girl said casually as she handed me the USB. We didn't notice until we watched it back. I loaded the file, balanced the audio, didn't care much. Most films like this try to feel mysterious, but end with white text on black. And then it happened around minute 42. The camera moved slowly through a dark hallway. A large broken mirror stood at the far end, reflecting faint flashlight beams and scattered shadows. And then I saw myself, not someone who looked like me, not vaguely familiar, me, standing at the end of the hall, head tilted, staring into the camera. I froze, almost dropped the controller. The film kept playing. No one in the scene turned around. No one noticed me. They just walked past, like I was never there. I rewound, paused, zoomed in, and for the first time in almost 10 years, I really saw myself. Not in a mirror, not on security footage, but inside a film shot less than a year ago at a place I'd never been. I rushed downstairs, asked the students, "Who's the guy in the hall?" At the end of that scene, they glanced at each other, then laughed. "We asked the same thing," one said. "No one remembers seeing him during the shoot. We only spotted him during editing. At first, we thought he was crew, but nope, no one owned up." "Do you know him?" I didn't answer, because how could I tell them that I'd never been to that hospital, that I'd never left this town, never acted in a film, never sleepwalked through someone's set? And if I had been there, then that must have been a version of me I no longer remember. I couldn't sleep that night. I replayed the scene over and over again. The hallway, the broken mirror, the reflection, my face, same eyes, same scar above the brow I never knew how I got. How could I be in a place I'd never visited? How could I be filmed without knowing? Unless I'd been there before, long ago, before I became Ryan. The next morning, I drove north. The hospital was real. Closed 10 years ago. Locals called it Ridgeview Asylum, a place for the forgotten, the broken, the inconvenient. Some said it was haunted. Others just didn't talk about it. I parked behind the crumbling sidewall. The metal gate was rusted open, like no one had cared to keep it closed. I walked through overgrown weeds, past graffiti, smashed windows, and birds scattering into fog. The main entrance stood ahead, double doors, one still swinging gently in the wind, unlocked. Inside, it was silent, not the peaceful kind, the heavy, choking kind, like the building itself was holding its breath. I walked slowly. Every hallway looked like the one from the film, peeling paint, wheelchair tracks frozen in dust, faint outlines on the wall where signs used to hang. Then I saw it. The mirror, cracked, tall, At the end of the same hallway, this was the place. I stood where I'd seen myself standing in the footage. Same angle, same light. But now, no reflection. Only me, alone, staring into a void I didn't understand. I turned around. There, tucked into a broken file cabinet, were stacks of old patient records, some torn, some scorched. One folder was open, edges worn. And on the top sheet, my face, head shaved, blank expression, label above, Elliot R. Kessler, admitted, August 16, 2014, status, involuntary, reason, psychological trauma following family incident, discharged, N.A. I stared at the photo. I didn't recognize the man, but I knew he had once been me. Suddenly, something clinked on the ground. A key, not dusty, not rusted, new, as if someone had left it for me. I picked it up. It had a tag, room 304. I walked down the west wing. Each door was numbered, faded, but still legible. When I reached 304, my hand shook. I inserted the key. It clicked open, too smoothly. Inside, the air was dry. A simple bed, metal desk, a narrow window. A box sat on the table. Inside the box, a letter, no envelope, no name. I sat down on the rusted chair, so old that even the slightest shift made it squeal under me. The letter lay in my hand, just a single trembling sentence written in fading ink. If you're reading this, it means the past has finally caught up to you. I turned it over, nothing on the back. No name, no date, no explanation. But the handwriting, it felt strangely familiar, like something I'd seen before or read a long, long time ago. I looked around the room, a room I had apparently lived in or been kept in. A deep scratch on the floor, like a chair had been dragged in the same spot over and over. A faint, round mark on the wall, maybe from a clock that had long been removed. A horizontal scrape across the paint, exactly where someone's wrist would be if they'd been tied down. I walked over to the desk, opened the drawer, empty, except for a sheet of paper folded into quarters, so brittle it might crack if I wasn't careful. I unfolded it. Date, blurred, E. They told me I shouldn't write, that you wouldn't read it, that you wouldn't even remember who I am. But if there's even a fragment of memory left inside you, then please don't let someone else rewrite your life. What happened that night? I don't blame you. I just wish you had stopped, just for a second. I don't know if you really saw anything through the smoke, or if you just wanted to believe that no one survived. But I'm still here, still alive, even if I'm no longer the girl I used to be. At the bottom, a symbol, a circle, slashed clean through. I froze. It was the same symbol I'd seen in my dreams, on the face of a clock, on the side of a mailbox, in all the places I thought were just my imagination. I sat there in silence. The words in the letter split my mind wide open. Not like a sudden explosion, but like something long buried was slowly surfacing, painfully, reluctantly, alive. You wouldn't remember who I am. She? Who was she? Did she know me? Or did I once know her? And what happened that night? I left room 304. Outside, dusk had begun to fall. The light streaming through the broken glass painted fractured shadows across the hallway walls. I stood in that corridor of memory, unsure if I was confronting the past or being led by it one step at a time to somewhere I couldn't turn back from. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a name, the only one in my contacts without a photo, one that appeared briefly years ago when I changed numbers. Hannah, I typed. I need to talk. About before, about me, about my sister. if you still remember who I am. Message sent. No reply. But seconds later, my phone rang. Hannah? My voice caught as I answered the call. There was silence on the other end. Then a soft breath. I always knew, she said, that one day you'd call. Her voice was deeper than I remembered, or maybe I never really remembered it at all. But something in me stirred at the sound of her name, not a memory, just a strange, overwhelming feeling. We met at a small cafe tucked deep in the old part of town. It was drizzling. Hannah had arrived early, seated at a table in the far corner, her posture still neat and careful, like an old student too afraid to be late. I walked in. She looked at me for a long time. No hug, no smile, no anger, just a long, silent stare. Then she asked quietly, "Do you remember anything yet?" I shook my head. Not clearly, but something's cracking inside, screams, firelight, and I paused. A door that wouldn't open. Hannah closed her eyes. It wasn't locked. You just didn't want to open it. And then she told me, 11 years ago, the wooden house on the hill burned down in the middle of the night. The news said it was a gas leak. 3 confirmed dead. Your parents and Mia, your little sister. Ryan, who was still called Elliot back then, was the only one who survived. Police found him standing outside the fire, covered in mud and blood, eyes wide open, not saying a word. Hannah was the only relative left. She admitted me into the psychiatric facility at the doctor's advice because Elliot had no memory of what happened and no resistance either. At first, I thought it was just trauma, she said, gripping her coffee cup. But then I saw your face inside that hospital. You didn't look lost. You looked like someone who wanted to be locked away. No one made you forget. You chose to. I stayed silent, my throat tight. Then I asked, did anyone ever find out what really happened that night? Anyone see it? Anyone know? Hannah pulled a small USB from her coat pocket. This came from a neighbor's security camera. It only captured part of the light. And some screams. Not clear, but clear enough to know. Mia made it to the front door. She was banging on it for 20 seconds before the fire swallowed everything. I started shaking, not from fear, but from something inside me beginning to crack. I remembered one thing. That night, I argued with our father. I found out he had been hitting Mia. I screamed. I threatened. I opened the gas can just to scare him. I wanted him to admit it. I wanted him to be afraid. But someone dropped a candle, and the fire caught. I remembered standing in the smoke, hearing Mia scream my name from outside the door. She screamed. I turned toward the sound, wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move, not because I was hurt, but because in my mind, a terrifying thought echoed, if they all die, no one will be left to tell what I've done. I remember myself stepping back, then a white flash, and everything went blank. Until now. I drove back to the hill, the place that used to be home. There was no clear reason, just a feeling. After meeting with Hannah, I couldn't sit still. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't go on living without returning to where it all began. The empty lot was silent. Patches of overgrown grass, chunks of brick scattered underfoot. Someone had cleaned it up long ago, put up a rusty fence with a faded sign, no trespassing. But I went in anyway. I walked across what used to be the living room. Somewhere beneath my feet was the burn mark I'd spent years trying to erase. I stood there for a long time, not waiting, not hoping, just staying, like someone who once ran away and had finally turned around to face what he left behind. And then my phone buzzed, an unknown number. I stared at it for a few seconds, almost pressed decline, but something made my hand stop. I answered, said nothing, and then a voice, a woman's, software raspy, not shaky, but it sounded like someone who hadn't spoken in a very long time. "You still stand there sometimes?" My throat tightened. I didn't know what I was hearing, a prank, a memory glitch. I wasn't sure I'd call, but I saw you in that film clip. And I knew you've started to remember. I couldn't say a word. I couldn't ask, "Who is this?" because I already knew. Mia, that voice, there was something in it that told me, without proof, this was her. I never died, you know. I got out before the house collapsed. But when I looked through the front glass, you turned away. And I understood then. You weren't trying to abandon me. You were trying to survive yourself. So I left. Not out of anger, but because I knew if I stayed, the fire wouldn't just take the house, it would take both of us. I leaned against a charred tree trunk, still standing on the edge of the lot. My chest felt like something was punching from the inside. "Why didn't you come back?" I finally asked. "Why didn't you let me know you were alive?" Mia went silent. Then, her voice, softer now, like tears held just beneath the words, "Because you weren't you anymore. The person I needed was someone brave enough to remember. Not someone living like nothing ever happened." I sank down onto the ground. Images burst forward. Me, the gas can, the candlelight, her voice, my feet stepping back. No one made me forget. I did that to myself. "Where are you now?" I asked. Her answer came without pause. "Right behind you." I turned. She stood there, older now, thinner, but her eyes were still hers. The same girl who used to chase me barefoot across the yard. No hug, no tears, just a look. Like she had been waiting for this exact moment for a very, very long time. I don't remember when I dropped to my knees. Maybe it was the moment Mia stepped forward. No words, no tears. Just me, collapsing to the dirt, beneath a cold wind and the brittle grass that had grown from the ashes of my home. She stood there, didn't rush to me, didn't try to lift me. She just stood, like that spot was where she'd been waiting for the past 11 years. "I killed them," I said, not as a confession, not to be forgiven, just the truth, nothing left to shield it. All because of one moment of rage, one desperate need to make him pay. I grabbed the gas can. I didn't mean to light it, but I knew what could happen, and I still did it. I lifted my head to look at Mia. She didn't speak, but her eyes never once looked away from mine. "I saw you," she said. "Through the door crack. I saw you standing there in the kitchen, your hand shaking over the lighter. And your eyes, they weren't the eyes of a killer. They were the eyes of a son who had just seen his father hurt his little sister." I broke, not from pain, from the weight of finally feeling something after 11 years of silence. I had lived like I was wounded, but I had never once admitted I was the one who shattered everything. "And then I heard you screaming at the door," I whispered, but I didn't turn around because part of me thought if they all died, no one would be left to tell the truth. Mia didn't flinch. She didn't console, just one line, soft as breath. But I lived, and I remember. We sat down together beside the blackened stump of an old tree. There were no hugs, no "I forgive you," no dramatic release, only presence. Two survivors, each holding half a truth, finally placing the pieces together. Not beautiful, not complete, but real. Why didn't you come back sooner? I asked. Because you weren't ready to meet yourself. The version of you I needed wasn't the one who ran away. It was the one who could finally say it. Say what he did. Say it without blaming memory, trauma, or anyone else. Before she left, Mia turned to me one last time. I don't need you to carry guilt forever. I just need you to live. Not to forget, but to remember this. You're the only one left who can tell the truth. I watched her walk away, didn't follow, didn't ask her to stay. I knew everything that needed to be said had been said. I stood in the middle of what used to be my home. Once, I burned it all down. But what burned wasn't just my family, it was the part of me I couldn't bear to face. And today, I began to pick it up, piece by piece, grief by grief, not to erase it, but to carry it, without shame. Ending. No matter what wrong we've done, if we still have the courage to admit it, then it's never too late. Cowardice isn't about making a mistake. It's about running from it forever. It's not memory that destroys us. It's the refusal to face it